we're running out of UU time this morning. Welcome to all of you who are joining us here in our sanctuary this morning. And welcome to those who are visiting our service online. Our Zoom is up, sort of, so we're good. Thank you so much, Rick.
Kind of.
Kind of. With all the choices we have for Sunday morning, and this is a beautiful morning, and I recognize that we could be out in beautiful sunshine, but we're so glad you chose to be in here with us. This morning, Kay will be playing our piano, and Rick has stepped in to be our technology lead. Thank you so much. For over 50 years, the UUFP has been a liberal religious voice in the Pottstown area. As UUs, we believe that it's okay if we don't have all the answers. The world is a big place, and it's important that we keep our open minds and our curiosity peaked towards everything we see. But perhaps most importantly, we believe that our circle of justice and compassion is big enough for everyone, no matter where they are in their spiritual journey. So we hope your spirit, your heart, and your mind are refreshed this morning as we explore the way that love guides our experience of the principle of a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We come together this Sunday morning, and every Sunday morning, not because of a creed, but because of a promise. We promise to uphold one another in our spiritual journeys. Our services are really different every week, but the loving kindness that we share is always the same. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, whomever you love, we are so glad that you came to be with us today. All right, now it is time for announcements. If anyone has an announcement, please come on up to the front and feel free to use the microphone.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Clifford, and yesterday I did a cooking class here that was a big benefit for the Unitarian Church, a cooking class all on how to cook the perfect steak. I also did a creamy potato gratin, actually two of them. One was some sauteed mushrooms that turned out to be the little star of the show. We raised over $600, and everyone had a really great time, including me. And also the cleanup crew was amazing. I don't know, 4 or 5 people came together and just, I don't know, the whole place was cleaned up in just a few minutes. So my hat's off to them.
Good morning, I'm Sam. Just a couple quick announcements. First off, Friday afternoon, I spent 5 hours polishing the floor in the social hall. So it looks like it's been urethane, but it's not. It's just a polish. And 5 hours because I have to take breaks. Two, and I don't know who's actually in charge of resupplying the nursery, but my daughter dropped off a rocking bassinet yesterday, so we're getting stuff in there. So for a little bitty kid, well, actually, she might could fit in it. It's kind of tight. Anyway, so we're going to start working on getting the nursery restocked and supplied, and then the kids can get in there too. That's it. Thank you.
Good morning, happy Father's Day. My husband's still sleeping. So I have a couple announcements. So we're gonna shift some things. Irene was in a car accident this week. She was rear-ended really badly at a stoplight. She's okay, she's got a concussion. She might be online now actually, but she's doing okay. But we're gonna push things a little bit just so she can kind of get back up and running, and we can kind of just reset. So next week's gonna end our pledge drive. So I have pledge cards here. I have them on the table like I did last week. If you have fill it out, you can give it to me. I'm gonna put it in our filing cabinet for Irene then. There's also a kid one too. We're gonna do our duck race for the kids if they would like to do a service like helping clean up or weeding the garden or whatever they wanna do. And we're gonna have our duck race at our water ceremony, which will be really fun. So I think it'll be really cool. Anyway, I'm looking forward to it. We have a whole bunch of ducks too that they get to pick from. So that's that. And then our congregational meeting is also moving to the 12th of July. So, because we're gonna be out the week of July 4th, so it'll be the weekend after that. July 12th will be the congregational meeting. and that's when we'll vote on everything. Next weekend, we will have our full agenda with what we're voting on and everything available. We'll post it. We'll also have that emailed to you so you have time to look at it. We're hoping to have the budget in that as well. So, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, I've set up to do a weekly donation online.
Yep.
But I still have to do the pledge card to let you know
Yeah.
what the budget is.
Yeah, if your pledge is staying the same, please still fill out a pledge card because it helps us like document everything and then it helps us build our budget for next year. So, and that's what we'll share with you. And we vote on the budget for, at the congregational meeting. So we'll be voting on the new board, and I can tell you who that'll be now. It's Chad's gonna be the president, Sam's gonna be vice president, and then we have, treasurer will be Irene, secretary will be Valerie, and then our, members at large are Judy and Diane. So the only real change is I'm leaving, and then Valerie's coming in, so, but it'll still be the same thing. And then we have, we'll also do our chairs positions too for the committees, so I'll have that list. It's a bunch of people, but, and then we'll do the budget. So it's those three things, okay? Awesome. Thank you.
All right, and now it's time for our chalice lighting. And Dahlia is gonna light our chalice this morning. We light our chalice this morning with words of Beth Winnicky. May this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we see what is good within us and around. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So that same technology that connects us to the people who are far away from us and makes it so the world seems like a much smaller place than it otherwise could be, also can divide us from one another when we're all sitting in the same room. Believe me, I have been sitting in the same room as my husband and texted him to get his attention. So let's take this opportunity to put our phones into worship mode and to be here in this moment where we are. All right. And now if you want to take just a nice deep breath. You can close your eyes if you wish. You can settle your body more firmly into your chair. And you can feel the way your feet touch the ground. And the way your shoulders hang from your neck. And the way your lungs expand with the air. You can hear the small noises of all of us being together. So for our opening words this morning, we have words by Krista Talbot, and actually a responsive reading. So I have words up on the screens up here and they're also in your order of service. And I'll read the things that are in italics and you all will read the things that are in bold. Whether you have come here with heart full or a heart empty, with spirits high or low, rested or tired, hopeful or despairing. Whether you have come here, you belong here because you are here. And all that you have and all that you are is welcome here. This morning we are together by the lead of this congregation. And we're going to join in singing, you can stand if you are in body or spirit, to sing hymn 338, I Seek the Spirit of the Child. And this one, it is actually easy, but I don't know how often we sung it before. It's not the So whether you are young in body or spirit, you're welcome to join us at the front of the sanctuary. But there's no pictures. Sorry. All right. Yeah. Awesome, thank you. So this is a story called Who Loves the Dark? How do you guys feel about the dark? Do you like the dark? No? Yes? You're not afraid? Right? Yeah. Well, it's hard because, we like to look at things. We use our eyes for lots of things, and it's hard when we can't use our eyes when we're used to it. So, once there was a child who got lost in the woods. As night began to descend, the child became more and more frightened. I'm sure more and more. I'm sure any of us would be frightened too. But what made this child even more frightened was that he had always been afraid of the dark. He was more afraid of the dark than any of his friends or any of his siblings, and he didn't know why he was more afraid. He only knew that when the sun went down, he was very glad to be inside his brightly lit house. Yes, what would you like to say? Something to say?
I have something to say.
Okay.
It is a joker with a box.
Oh, okay. What I'm talking about.
We're talking about listening to the story right now. Listen to the story.
So when the sun was all the way down and the only light was just a tiny bit of light from the moon and the stars, the child got so frightened that all he could do was sit down and cry. And soon he heard a voice say, "What's all that racket?" And he looked down and saw a mole squinting up at him. Can you imagine a mole coming up and talking to you? Well, he said, I'm lost in the woods and it's dark and I'm afraid. Well, said the mole, perhaps you could take your noisy crying further down the path. I hate having to come out of my warm, comfortable, dark hole to tell people to be quiet. Then the child heard another voice, and that voice said, oh, go on back into your hole, Mr. Mole. I'll take care of it. And the child looked up in the direction of the newer voice. In the darkness, he could see two glowing eyes looking down at him. Before he could scream, which was his first impulse, would be mine too, I think. There was a flutter of wings, and the creature flew down near him. You could see it was an owl. Please excuse Mr. Mole. He hates to come out of his nice dark hole for anything, to be honest. At this, the child burst out crying even harder than before, because as frightened as he was of the dark, having a bunch of non-human animals speak to him was a little scary. Yeah. I think they are. Yeah, I think they're magic. Too. They're pretty cool. Yeah, they only come out at night. That's true. No need for that crying, said the owl. Just give me your address and I can guide you home. Well, with that, the child did stop crying, partly out of relief that he might be able to go home, and partly out of curiosity as to how an owl could locate his home without the address. But deciding he had little to lose, the child choked back his tears and replied he'd be very grateful to be guided home. So he gave the owl his address. Now, does everyone here have your address in case you need an owl to take you home? Mm-hmm. Yes. It's no magic. So this strange pair headed off through the dark forest in what the child hoped was truly the direction of his home. And when his fear left him just a little bit, the child looked around, and though the moonlight was dim, he began to notice his surroundings. At one point, he noticed a flower he'd never seen before, and slowed down just a little bit to look at it. That, said the owl, was an evening primrose. Did you know that there are some flowers that only bloom at night? There are moonflowers and gladiolas too, flowers you would never see if you never went out at night. And after a while, the owl said, as if musing aloud to herself, and of course there are animals too who love the night and darkness. Me, for example, I love the dark. Daytime light hurts my eyes. That's just what you just said. And that's when I like to go in my tree and sleep. Well, to this, the boy replied, well, I like the daytime because I can see to kick a ball. When the dark isn't scary, it's just boring. Boring, said the owl. Well, she clearly had some opinions on that. But just then, guess what came out? A bat! And the boy started flailing his arms about the bat. Ah! Well, the shape backed away, hovering just out of reach, and said, excuse me, that's just my way of saying hello. Well, hello to you, Mr. Bat, said the owl. This child was out here lost in the forest, and I'm helping him find his way home. You're not hurt, are you? Well, said the bat, I'll probably have a bruise on my backside, but I think I'll live. But you're a bat, a creature of darkness. Were you trying to drink my blood? No, said the bat. I've been eating a lot of the yummy insects that would be drinking your blood. Well, if you want to come just a little bit out of your way, I can show you something really exciting. Oh, my parents always told me never to go with strangers, said the child. Oh, vouch for me, said the bat. We've known each other for years and years. So Owl agreed that Mr. Bat was indeed an upstanding citizen, and the group went off the path just a little bit and came out onto a dark beach. Here we are, said the bat. The child gazed out at the beach, very gently lit by moonlight, and thought, this is certainly beautiful, even in the dark. And just then there was movement in the sand, like a little bubble rising up. And there was another little bubble, and another, just as if the sand of the beach were boiling. And out of those little bubbles of sand popped a rounded shape. Oh, looks like we got here just the right time, said the bat. As they watched, more and more shadowy shapes came up out of the sand, and soon the child realized what he was seeing. Hundreds of baby turtles climbing out of the sand. That was truly exciting. And once each shape pulled itself out of the sand and started crawling as fast as its legs could carry toward the water. Baby sea turtles need to find their way to water as soon as they hatch. Mostly do this at nighttime because they can follow the moon and the starlight reflecting on the water. Daytime sunlight is too bright and it's scattered everywhere. So they turn to leave and head back towards the child's home. And Owl said, you know who else loves the darkness besides all the nighttime plants and animals? Who else do you think? Can I give you a hint? What do you mean, like see way up in the sky at night? Not at all. The moon and the stars. That's when they can really shine. They shine at night. Yeah. Well, after what seemed like a very short time, the child and the owl left the forest and walked down a street that the child recognized as his very own. He was happy and relieved, but actually a little sad to say goodbye to Owl. And before he went to bed, as a matter of habit, he bent down to turn on the nightlight that he always kept glowing through the night to keep the dark at bay. But before his fingers touched the switch of the nightlight, he smiled and pulled his hand away. He got into his bed, pulled up the covers, and let the comforting arms of darkness soothe him to sleep. The end. All right. Good question.
The only bug I know now is that the back was it that the back was that on separate to the body that ate those pumpkins because everything is not up at one.
Could have been a tick, could have been a mosquito, could have been a fly. There's some biting flies that are no fun. Horseflies. Have you ever been bit by a horsefly? It's out.
I was there before, but I'm not bit by one. All I just got hurt by
It's like normal flies. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. And I think we go back and sit down. I don't think there's no. No, you do? I don't know.
Jackie, sit down.
Okay. So we did something going on. That's fine. Good. There should be one. Yes. All right. So now we have another story, but this is a grown-up story.
no.
The other one was too.
Yeah.
It's called Storms by Tomo Hilbo. And it's another one from Raymond Weiser because that's my favorite. And he starts with the Zuni prayer for rain. Cover my earth, mother, 4 times with many flowers. Let the heavens be covered with the banked up clouds. Let the earth be covered with fog. Cover the earth with rains. Great waters rains cover the earth. Lightning cover the earth. Let thunder be heard over the earth. Let thunder be heard over the 6 regions of the earth. So he starts with a question. How do you experience rain? Not the rain on the weather maps, but the rain that falls on you. Do you ever think about how that feels? All my life, I lived in densely populated areas. My skies were those small spaces put out by the buildings and the houses and the tall trees. And when a rainstorm came, it enveloped me and made me feel like my whole world had become a storm. I wouldn't know when it would start or when it would stop. It just came and went, and I was smack in the middle of it. Then I moved to New Mexico. These big skies have been calling my soul for 30 years, and now I understand why. They aren't just beautiful, they're changing the way I exist. During the summer, the humid air from the Gulf of Mexico lifts to our high desert terrain and produces tremendous scattered thunderstorms. In the vast landscapes of New Mexico and under its big skies, those storms appear as if they've been magicked out of the weather maps. I can witness the rain falling near and far, some softly and others in earnest cloudbursts, blue skies in between and beyond. Storms teach me how limited my perspective is. When I'm in one of those storms, I'm not aware of the blue skies behind the torrential rain. I also cannot experience what it's like to be in that storm when I'm outside of it and observing from a safe distance. Life is full of events like those storms. Some are nurturing, others are destructive. A storm can land softly on some of us, while bringing devastation to others. But blue skies are also possible between the storms, and knowing this gives me the courage to go on. It also reminds me to keep widening my perspective, continuing to learn, and growing my compassion. When the storm is powerful, we need each other to weather. And then there's a prayer. Dearest universe, the source of life, grant us the humility to know that our perception is limited. Give us genuine concern and curiosity to find out how others are experiencing the world. And nurture our creativity so we can transform that curiosity into compassion. Amen. Now is the time in our service when we pause for our morning offering. Paul R. Beadle says, once upon a time, most folks used the offering plate to fulfill their pledges. And I know some of us still do. But some people have church websites or automatic transfers from the checking account. And some still write a monthly check as paying their church bill with all the other bills. But passing the offering plate has always been a ritual. Even if your pledge is paid up, it's worthwhile for you to bring just $1 to drop into a plate as a ritual reminder of that form of love we call generosity. It's a reminder that after meeting our obligations to ourselves and our households and the communities to which we belong, we still have the capacity to give. The practice of giving is what second nature, first response, helps bring forth the realm of love. So thank you so much for the morning offering, given in the spirit of generosity and received with gratitude and love. Rediscovering Wonderland. So I thought about curiosity, and when I think about that, the phrase that echoes in my head is from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, because she says, curiouser and curiouser. And that's what goes through my head when I hear curious, and curiouser and curiouser. So I actually went back to the book and read a little bit more of it. And it goes, curiouser and curiouser, cried Alice. She was so much surprised that for the moment she quite forgot how to speak good English. Now I'm opening out like the largest telescope that ever was. Goodbye, feet. So Alice in Wonderland, as I'm sure you're aware, is a whimsical tale of a young girl who encounters many strange and wonderful and horrible things after following a white rabbit down a hole. Alice is a bit of a role model for open-hearted curiosity. You know, when we talk about following an interesting idea in the internet, we often say you have gone down a rabbit hole. And especially on the internet, you never know what you're going to find. But even when we think about being curious enough about a topic to do some research and think about, see what we can find, we still stay a little skeptical. Well, Alice doesn't blink at the notion that at the bottom of a hole, she would find a door too small for her to exit through that leads out into a colorful new world. Adults would try to make that logical. Alice just tries the helpfully labeled food to see about becoming the right size to fit through the door. Adults are much less inclined to eat unattended food. Of course, the open curiosity that Alice shows is very trusting. And as we grow up, we become much less inclined to trust. We know we can't trust everything we read. We can't trust that drink that didn't come directly from the bartender. And that lack of trust leads into everything we encounter. While Alice doesn't blink at having a conversation with an imperious caterpillar who's larger than she is, we adults may struggle to have a conversation with a person who's just like us, except for their opinion on one particular topic. Doctors Adashi, Ahmed, and Buposu wrote an article for the American Journal of Medicine in 2019, where they extolled the human capacity for curiosity, especially as it relates to the practice of medicine. They write that behavior theory suggests that curiosity is an adaptive trait related to the drive to relieve an uncomfortable sense of uncertainty. They also suggest that curiosity is something to be fostered in medical students, medical school faculties, and practicing physicians to foster a joy for lifelong learning and to combat the risk of algorithm-driven medicine. They quote Sir William Osmer, who warns that the greatest enemy to the scientific practice of medicine is the scientific practice of routine. For Alice, a tea party would have been routine. And when she arrived on that scene with the Mad Hatter, she saw a big table all laid out for tea with three participants gathered into one little corner of that table. Well, as she approached, the Mad Hatter and the March Hare told her there was no room for her, which she found odd as there were many unoccupied places. Alice sat down anyhow and had a conversation. Conversation is a pretty important part of curiosity. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Ernesto Ciroli's 2012 TED Talk. If you haven't heard it already, it's really funny. But it talks about how in the 1970s, he and a team of Italian aid workers came to Zambia with seeds for Italian tomatoes and zucchini because they wanted to teach the local Zambian people how to farm their beautiful fertile river valley. And this beautiful valley, why aren't they farming it? They must not know how to farm. While Ciroli's team was shocked there was not already agriculture. The soil was so good. They were also shocked that it was so difficult to get people to show up for work on the farm. The tomatoes were so easy to grow. They were growing much bigger and much more beautiful than they did, even in their native Italy. These were amazing tomatoes. Well, just before harvest time, tomatoes were getting red and juicy. The zucchinis were getting nice and long, and giant herd of hippos came rushing out of the river, ate all those nice zucchinis and all those beautiful red tomatoes. And when the Italians asked, why didn't you tell us this would happen? The Zambians replied, well, you didn't ask. Now, to be fair, Alice, when she sat down at the Mad Hatter's tea party, didn't ask about the empty places. In fact, she started by quarreling with the Hatter and the Hare over whether she could sit down at all. However, after a conversation, she found that the Hatter had had a disagreement with time, and it was now always tea time, and never time for washing up. So they had to continually move to new places at the table. The places were not empty, they were just prepared for 6 o'clock to continue to roll around. Curiosity transforms what starts out looking like a random collection of medical complaints or a wasted opportunity to grow food or a lot of extra effort with the place settings into a story with its own internal logic. On the podcast Hidden Brain, host Shankar Vedantam speaks to psychologist Kristen Neff about self-compassion. And Neff asks Vedantam a simple question. If I said your podcast was average, how would you feel? Now, you can try asking yourself that question. You can swap out podcast with anything that you do that you're invested in, or even some things you do that you're not too invested in. It doesn't feel good, does it? Like, even if we're not invested, we want to be more than ordinary. For example, we've all heard that 80% of drivers think they are better than average. Or if you've ever listened to Prairie Home Companion, you may remember the closing to all the stories about Lake Wobegon, which was where the women are strong, the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. When we hear it said out loud, that we all believe we're above average, well, it sounds kind of silly. We know intellectually, most things are average. Most people, in most ways, we're average. That's why there's an average. But Kristen Neff's question to Shankar Vedantam highlights the fact that being average in our society feels a lot like not being good enough. Now, at my office, we just completed our annual review process, and this year they removed the numbers from the descriptions. So people are no longer ranked on a 1 through 4, but they changed the metrics from numbers to words, and it doesn't make people ignore the difference between valued performer and exceptional effort. Yeah, our cultural baseline is set to special. Jeff Wetzler, writing for the Minds Journal, says that curiosity is associated with openness, creativity, and well-being. But when we feel like we're under threat, curiosity is one of the first things to go. So when we're challenged with a question, even a question as seemingly minor as, I told you were average, our curiosity tends to shut down. This is an adaptation in the past would help us to survive. If we're under threat from, let's say, a bear that just walked out from behind a big rock, it might be a good idea from a survival standpoint to stop messing around with the possible medical properties of the lichen on the rock and focus on not getting eaten by the bear. But most of us don't live that way anymore. The threats we come across tend to be more abstract. A rating from a credit card company, or a comment from a coworker, or a story in the news, or a sign on a neighbor's lawn. These are not things that are an imminent danger to us, but they are an imminent danger to our sense of curiosity. So the challenge becomes, how do we stay connected to curiosity, even when our operating system tells us that we have all the answers? Well, Wetzler has some suggestions, but they're all rooted in a first step of noticing your reaction. Now, sometimes we'll notice a threat reaction in our bodies before we even notice the behavioral reaction. Like if you sense that after hearing something, your shoulders get tighter, you're curled in on yourself, or your hands are a little shaky, or your jaw is clenched, that physical tightness, that's also a sign of mental tightness. And when you notice that, you can stop and ask yourself, is this warranted? So if you're sitting alone in your living room watching an upsetting news story, the chances of immediate physical danger are probably pretty low. So give yourself the gift of 3 deep breaths and a moment of conscious calm. That activates your parasympathetic nervous system. So not too long ago, my husband's car died while he was on the way to pick up my daughter from school. And I was an hour away at work, and the after-school program was closing in 5 minutes. And as I was leaving the office, so I'm like literally running out of the office, Cordelia needs to be picked up in 5 minutes. My boss reminded me that she'll still be there when I get there. I was still pretty frantic for the whole car ride, but that reminder, she'll still be there, gave me the space to periodically pull my shoulders down and take my foot off the accelerator. Although I'm really glad there were no cops out that day. Curiosity, rather than reactivity, gave me the ability to brainstorm solutions so that we would not be stuck with this happening in the future. There's someone else who is close enough to pick her up in 5 minutes instead of me going, it's 6:30, I'm so sorry. All right, so after you give yourself that moment of calm, when you come across a challenge or a puzzle, try to notice what assumptions you're treating as facts. You can try to come up with alternative explanations or speak to someone with a different perspective. Going back to Alice at that tea party, Alice assumed that the empty chairs at the Mad Hatter tables were for other guests. But after hearing the perspective of the Hatter, the Hare, and the Dormouse, she came away with a new understanding. So when you have a disagreement or you don't see eye to eye with someone, You can think about what they might be struggling with. Or you can take a step back and look at where your own feelings may be coming from and what your feelings are trying to tell you. The other important thing that Wetzler reminds us is that curiosity is a state we can move into and out of. When we're curious, we can treat ourselves and the world with a little more compassion. And that's something that's worth fostering. That's a way that we can make the world our own little wonderland. So may it be so. Now please rise in body or spirit to join in singing hymn number 6 in the great hymnal, just as long as I have breath, which I did not have to. Okay. We all know this one, so. All right, well, now is the time in our service where we take a few minutes to share our joys and our concerns. And we have turned off the camera, so we're not going to be sharing your joys and concerns for posterity or all of the joys that are spoken or unspoken. Let's take one more moment. Please join me in reading our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish the chalice flame, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of the community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and in our hands until we are together again. And we'll close today with words by Barbara Cheatham. And now we take our leave. Before we gather here again, may each of us bring happiness into another's life. May we each be surprised by the gifts that surround us. May each of us be enlivened by constant curiosity. And may we remain together in spirit till the hour we meet again. Amen, shalom, salam, blessed be, and thank you for joining us today. And please stay for some coffee.